play ball. Have fun.
Hello everyone, please take your seats, finish up your goodies. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and my name is Luli and I'm an alcoholic. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church here at 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m. in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The purpose of the group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, just simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name only? Yes. Hey, Victor.
Yeah, my name's Greg. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Greg. Welcome.
Ryan, alcoholic.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Carol. Hello, Mike. I don't know. Mike. Yes. Hi, Amy. Welcome. Hi, Corey. Welcome. Yes, I remember you from the Bronx. Hello, Tony. Hello, Daniel. Welcome. Anybody else? Yes. Hey, Matt. Welcome. Anyone else? Yes. Hello, Mike. Welcome. I think I saw one more hand. Was there one more hand? No? Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship, so would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Okay, so please see one of these people afterwards for good sponsorship. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Yes.
Dora Alcoholic.
Hi, Dora.
District 23 is having their workshop this following Saturday from 8 to 12. It's going to be on literature. So please come join us. We'll be in Catboro after the meeting.
Great, please go to that meeting. So we have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will provide you one free of charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of these big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar at the back of the room. If you would like a CD of any speaker, past or present, please see Ron after the meeting. They're available free of charge, and there is really a wide assortment of them. I have asked Pam now to come up and read the AA preamble. It's right there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pam. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And Chrissy will come up and read the AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
I'm Chrissy and I'm an alcoholic. These are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying for only knowledge for His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
So I forgot to mention that this month is Ladies' Nights for the whole month, so welcome everyone to Ladies' Month. We do have the 7th tradition, and every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'd like to pass the baskets. We do not have any dues or fees, but we do have expenses, such as coffee, cream, donuts, big books and CDs, and of course Tim's ham sliders, and Ron and Annette's delicious hot dogs and sausages. There's absolutely no smoking on church property, please. And if you could silence your cell phones at this time, that would be great so we can avoid distractions during the meeting. So now it's time to introduce the speaker, and she is a very good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. She comes from Yonkers, New York, from the home group of Pathway to Power. Please help me welcome Rebecka P.
Hi, Rebecca, recovered alcoholic. I'd like to take a moment of silence to invite God into the room. I would like to thank Ron and all the committee that would help put this together this evening. It's really an honor to be up here this evening. As she said, my home group is Pathway to Power. We're a big book-based group from Yonkers, New York. We meet Wednesday and Saturday nights at 8:15. I truly believe that my home group is the best home group, and if you don't believe that yours is, you better find another one. Yeah, I mean, this spread, I mean, we were so excited. 2 hours in the car coming out here, and we got Italian sausages and the ham sliders and cronuts. I mean, this is just absolutely amazing what you guys have going here. You know, I want to thank my sponsor, Tony Zayas, for driving, for getting me through the steps. God bless his heart. And, you know, I want to thank Gabby for being here this evening. You know, without you, I can't be here, and I can't stay sober to have somebody else to help, because that's what this whole program is about. My sober date is November 23rd, 2014. I went to my first meeting 20 years ago. I'm from upstate New York, Goshen. You know, we're joking in the car on the way here. It's a lot of farms. It's called slow motion Goshen because there's nothing up there. Literally nothing. You know, like if you're not getting into trouble, I don't know what you're doing because there's literally just nothing else up there. You know, my parents, you know, owned a home across the street from a farm, and you know, and that's what I did, was just get into a lot of, you know, even from like an early age, I just had a double life. I was on the math team, I was in band, I played saxophone, you know. But then at the same time, you know, as soon as I found alcohol in my life, I had a new obsession. And it was something, you know, that I didn't realize was going to carry with me through the rest of my life. You know, as soon as I first had alcohol in my life, I knew that there was something about it. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it stopped whatever it was that made me different from you and everybody else that I'd met thus far in my life. You know, if I felt like no matter what I achieved or what I did on the outside of my life, I was never good enough. You know, I had this thing where, like, you know, I can read minds. I don't know if you guys can do it, but I can totally read minds, you know? And especially in, like, junior high, like, I knew what you were thinking about me, and it was always bad stuff, you know? And I knew that I was thinking bad stuff about you, and the only thing that ever quelled, like, the insanity and my insecurities, you know, was this drink. You know, it's so amazing to be standing up here and like looking back at all these faces. Like, it's absolutely terrifying, but it's also the most like amazingly like loved feeling too. To know that like we're all here for the same reason and for the same purpose, and that God graced us by letting us be here. You know, I don't want to have a huge drunkalogue, you know, but I thought, you know, for a long time that, you know, that because of my past, like I was trapped in being who I was going to be. I had a suicide attempt at 17. You know, my parents walked in to find me hanging in the closet. I went into a psych ward for the mandatory 28 days until the insurance ran out, and I went into a group home. You know, and even at a young age, you know, my self-will was just extremely strong. You know, I went into a group home and I graduated early from high school with honors. I mean, you know, it's just, there's just no other explanation for it. You know, when I got out of the group home, I couldn't afford anything. You know, so I lived in an abandoned trailer for 6 months until I saved up enough to get my own apartment. You know, like whatever challenge I faced, I thought I could do it. You know, and I think that that's wholly contributed to the fact that I didn't want to receive any help from my drinking or anything else, because damn it, if I could get through anything else like this, if I could be strong-willed enough to get through everything I have in my life, there's no reason I can't conquer this on my own too. At the age of 20, I packed up and I moved to Washington Heights. I decided to recreate my life. I thought that was a place to do it. I love, because where else would a farm girl from Goshen go but Washington Heights? And you know, and I wanted trouble and I wanted excitement, and I found it, and it was a wonderful place to be. You know, turning 20 years old, and I lie on my resume, I get a bartending job, and all of a sudden this thing that's inside of me that, like, you know, I've started drinking, and I'm drinking more and more, and you know, and this thing all of a sudden I have is, you know, becoming more and more important to me, and now not only do I get to drink it, now I get to serve it to you. You know, and now I get to change my personality depending on who I'm serving and what establishment I'm working at. And not only that, but now I have the power to cut you off or to buy you drinks. You know, I have the power to make you my friends, to make you my boyfriend. That's how I met my husband, you know. And, you know, and I really had this feeling of, you know, I have arrived. You know, like this was it. This is who I'm meant to be. I'm going to be bartender extraordinaire, and this is going to be absolutely amazing. You know, and of course, if that was it, I wouldn't be standing up here. You know, my drinking progressed through my 20s, and eventually, like I said, I met my now ex-husband in a bar, and you know, I remember when I met him, he walked in the bar, and he wanted to buy me a drink, and I was like, no, it's okay, you know, I'll be, you know, and I was like, well, don't worry about it, I'll be working. And he said, you know, oh, this is terrible. And I was like, why? And he was like, because I wanted to hang out with you. And I was like, oh, don't worry, you know, now that I'm working, you know, I'll be stuck with you all night, you know, and now we have a child together, and now I'm going to be stuck with him for the rest of my life. And, you know, I remember when I met him, you know, he had said to me, you know, don't tell my parents, you know, how much we party, don't tell them what we do. You know, I kind of went crazy in my last relationship, and I want them to really think highly of you. And I was like, that's a brilliant idea. I'm going to tell my parents that I've changed my life around because of you. And like, this was a red flag, like to any other normal functioning person, but to me, this was like a highly functioning, you know, alcoholic, logical person. Like, wonderful, you've got a plan, I'm in with it, let's go, you know. And you can drink with me, this is wonderful, you know. You know, but it's just not how life goes. You know, no human power can help me. You know, and I tried that many, many times in many other relationships. You know, no matter who I was dating, it always came down to me and my drinking. And there were plenty of times that I had men tell me, you know, I don't like you when you're drinking. And I said, well, that kind of sucks for you because I only like you when I am drinking. You know, and you know, it was an alcoholic relationship. We moved in after 2 weeks. We were married after 3 months. We had our beautiful son, who was the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. And you know, right into the marriage, it got very abusive and it got really intense. And you know, my drinking progressed, and it wasn't because of him. It was because I just simply didn't know what else to do, and now I had an even like stronger excuse, you know. And we ended up getting divorced. And, you know, I knew that my drinking had to stop. And, you know, it was about 18 months before I got this round of sobriety here under my belt. You know, I was trying to go to meetings. You know, I would go to a meeting here or there. At one point, you know, he told me they didn't want me to going to meetings because he didn't want anybody knowing that his wife was an alcoholic. You know, and I was like, that's great, because now I don't have to stop drinking. This is wonderful, you know. I look back and there's just, plenty of times, that even like, the good times, like my favorite story of drinking was when I passed out, waiting for a PATH train one day, and I woke up to a cop kicking my foot, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe this. And he said some things to me, and I said some things back to this policeman that you're not supposed to say, and the next thing I knew, I was in plastic handcuffs and inside the ER of the hospital. And, I gave myself a nice nap, and I got rejuvenated, and I was ready to go. What else do you do? I just got a power nap in. And, and then my shoes were gone and my phone was dead. And they were like, no, like, we're going to hold you in here for detox and you're going to be arraigned for drunken disorderly behavior. And I was like, I don't have time for this. I got to go home and walk my dog. I have to be to work in the morning. Like, this isn't going to happen. Like, you guys don't know. You guys don't understand how responsible I am. Like, no matter how drunk I get, I'm showing up for work. I might get drunk more when I get there, but I'm showing up for work, Nothing's going to stop me from drinking, but I'll do what I have to do, And I did what I had to do. I waited for them to call a code. They went beeping off on the other side. Everybody scattered to go help somebody that actually needed help. And in that moment, I grabbed my phone. I had my little plastic handcuffs, and I ran barefoot out the door. And I hailed a cab and jumped in, and I was like, oh my God, this is super easy. I can't believe this is happening. And I chewed off my little plastic handcuffs, and I was like, I gotta go home. It's like 4 a.m. And as we're going home, I passed my local bar, which is the Astor Bar in Jersey City at the time, and I was like, I gotta tell them first. So barefoot, coming out of the hospital, I went right back in and drank until I had to go into work, And that's just what my life was like, and that was the good times, I had jobs where, I was signing contracts, saying that I would never ever drink again at my job. I was taking off night shifts. I was fired. It didn't matter, So November 19th roundabout, I decided it's the day that I'm going to stop drinking. And I had been continuously trying to quit drinking before, and I kept having, dry heaves, and I would get the shakes and all sorts of other physical abnormalities that people don't get when they quit drinking unless they're physically addicted to alcohol. And I had a friend stay with me for the first 3 days, and I thought everything was going to be great. I was like, I'm going to kick alcohol. For some reason, I had it in 3 days is the amount of time it takes for alcohol. I made this up in my head because these are the rules of life that I live by. So in 3 days, the alcohol is going to be out of my system, and I'm going to be good because that's all it is. It's just a physical addiction in me. And so once the alcohol's out, I'm going to be good because at this point, I had been drinking every day for at least 10 years. I remember being in law school at Seton Hall and taking a shower one day, and again, none of my work was done, none of my reading was done, and I was like, oh my God, I have worked my entire life to get into law school, and I'm going to fail out because I can't stop drinking. I literally would promise myself every single morning, today's the day, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do my briefs, I'm going to be prepared, I'm going to do this. And then one day I just didn't go back because I couldn't stop. So this is 10 years later, and I had a friend come babysit me, and I thought that I had everything set down. I told my ex-husband, I'm going on vacation, please watch our son, I'll be away for a week, give me this time, to take care of myself. And, 3 days in, my friend had to go back to work, and I was getting extremely sick. I was getting really terrible convulsions, and I started hallucinating, and I didn't know that I was hallucinating. And, I remember calling up my mom, and my mom calling up, threatening to call up 911 because I saw my aunt there, and I was seeing people in my house, except that that's what hallucinations are. You don't know. And this is alcohol. Nobody told me that you would hallucinate from alcohol. This is insane. This is what happens with heavy-duty drugs and that kind of stuff, Nobody, I'm, at this point, I'm a 36-year-old woman. This isn't supposed to happen to me, And so sure enough, I walk out into the living room, and I see my son on the couch, and he's not breathing. And of course, it's a hallucination, but I don't know that in my head. And I call up 911, and I frantically tell them, that I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's a gas leak, but my son is unconscious on the couch. He's not breathing. I need help. And they're like, is anything else going on? And I said, I'm detoxing off of alcohol. I said, and I think I'm losing my mind. I don't know what's going on. And they brought me into the hospital. They had to break down the doors and everything. I was talking to the walls, and I remember them dragging me away because I was looking in the couch for my kid because he disappeared on my hallucinations. They said he wasn't there, And I was in the hospital for 4 days where they had to monitor me and restabilize me. I almost died, and the only reason why they didn't put me in the psych ward was because they couldn't get my heart rate stabilized. I was talking to people that weren't there. I was talking to my mom who lives in Texas, not on the phone. She was sitting right next to me the whole time. Apparently I was talking to my kid in the room. They ended up having to put me in leather restraints. I tried to bite a nurse. These are all things that, I do a lot of crazy, terrible, horrible things in my life. This is not one of those things that, really goes into that category, And so they end up releasing me against the doctor's orders, and I'm out, and I walk out a free woman, and I thank God, and I say, God, thank you for getting me out of here. Like, everything is going to be okay now. The alcohol is out of my system. Like, we made it. We're survivors. Like, we made it, God. Like, you and I, we got through this. Whatever happens, it's, from here on in, like, my foxhole prayer has been answered, and we're good, And I went to go to my son's school, and I walked up to the pre-K, and the teacher wouldn't let me in the classroom. And I walked back outside to the car, and at this point, I'm still not in any sort of condition. I've got bruises on my arms from the leather restraints. I've got marks and bruises up and down my arms they had to put the restraints on me from fighting people and from ripping the needles out of my arms. All this stuff I don't recall whatsoever. It's all just from the detox and everything, And here I am thinking I'm capable of taking care of my toddler, And so I show up there, and they called the cops on me, and they served me with orders of protection, and for a change of custody. And my ex-husband had found out that I was in the hospital, because of alcoholism. And, he did what he felt he had to do. And so I came out of the hospital thinking, that everything was okay at this point. That now that the alcohol was out, that I had done the right thing, and I'm never ever going to drink again. And here I am being served with this order of protection that my son's being taken from me. And everything just crumbled and fell apart. And this was my first step. This was when I knew that I was utterly and completely powerless over alcohol, because I went directly to the liquor store and I bought myself a bottle. 4 days of almost dying in a hospital, and the first thing I do is go for that, because without my son, I didn't know what else there was. And I drank for the next 24 hours. I drank until I was throwing up blood, and I couldn't get drunk. I'd pass out and drink more, and I couldn't get drunk. I couldn't relieve myself of the pain, of the insanity, of everything going on inside my head. Everything was wrong. I didn't know how it was ever going to be right. But I went to an attorney, and they told me that if you ever want to see your son again, you have to stop. And I went to a meeting the next day. And my first meeting was over at Sponsor House, and, again, this was, after being in and out of meetings for 20 years. I thought I knew what the program was all about. I went and I found myself a sponsor. I was living at meetings, In the first 90 days of my sobriety, I lost my son, I lost my job, I lost my home. And I can't tell you how much I hated God, or even the idea of God, or anything else. It's amazing to look back and to be standing here and to be so absolutely grateful for everything that's happened in my life. And to be able to look back and say that honestly. So I did what I was told, meeting makers make it, stay for 5 minutes before, come for 5 minutes after. Every slogan that you threw at me, I was clinging to, I was going to 4 or 5 meetings a day, and honestly, at that point, I had to, because I didn't have anything else, and I was afraid that if I went, even like walking down the street, if somebody even offered me a drink, I was going to drink it. I was absolutely broken and destroyed, and there was just no willpower. I knew that I was an alcoholic. I knew I couldn't drink. I'm a psych major. I mean, I know everything, obviously. And it didn't matter. My self-will failed me. My self-knowledge failed me. And, I started going through the book with somebody, that not being the big book, but that being the 12 and 12, and, and I started, looking around, and everybody else's lives seem to be getting better, and they keep telling me, keep coming back, and just don't drink, and, everything's going to be okay, and I'm 90 days in, and, and it's great, because I'm getting, all these negative tox screenings, and I'm going to outpatient, and everybody's telling me, I'm not looking as yellow and jaundiced anymore. And I'm like, well, that's great. I still have the shakes after 90 days. I still haven't spoken to my son yet at this point. Every day is just torturous. Just every morning the disease has me in its grips. The alcohol is out of my life, but there's absolutely no other power replacing it. So I'm waking up every morning, never mind restless, irritable, and discontent, just absolute terror. Before my eyes even open, just coming into consciousness, I already want to die. And that's what it was like before when I was drinking. Before my eyes even opened, I was planning on what I was going to do to get that drink. If I didn't have money, which one of my ex-boyfriends am I going to invite over for dinner and ask them to buy me a bottle? you know, and then just every way that I tried to moderate it, you know, I was drinking straight vodka, and then, you know, when I was at home, I would hide vodka from myself because I would have the shakes in the morning. I would literally have to, in my sober state, hide vodka in multiple places around my house so that drunk me wouldn't find it, so that in the morning I would have alcohol to drink so that I could walk my kid to school and hold a pen and not have the shakes. That was really cute, sorry. You know, I page marked this thing in here. It's page 52 in the big book, and it lists the bedevilments, right? We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. My God, every waking moment full of fear. We were unhappy, and we couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. You know, and that was my life. But that wasn't my life drinking. That was my life when I put down the drink. You know, and that's what nobody, at least the meetings that I had started going to had told me. You know, that it wasn't the alcohol. You know, alcohol is only mentioned within the first step. Putting down the drink doesn't do anything. Putting down the drink leaves me in this horrible limbo where my only solution, the only thing that made me feel okay in my skin, has now been removed and there's nothing else. So now, you know, because when I'm drinking, I like all of you. Or you can all, you know, whatever. You know, control my emotional nature. I'm happy or I'm sad or I'm making out with you. Again, you know. We were prey to misery and depression. I mean, at that point, you know, I'll take out another credit card to buy shots for the bar. I can't pay my rent, but if I'm drinking, we'll figure it out another day. You know, full of fear, whatever. You know, unhappy, you know, I've got false hope. I've got false joy, you know. And all this was going on, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, and so I started, like, sponsor hopping, you know, because I was like, maybe it's not this person, and God bless this woman's heart. She did the best that she could, and now I'm taking her through the big book. You know, because she couldn't give me the experience I was looking for. Because I had been blessed to stumble into what's now my home group, Pathway to Power. At about 6 months sober, one of the gentlemen from Pathway had done an outgoing, and my home group is really, really big on outgoings. We do a lot of service of rehabs and detoxes and that kind of stuff. And that was something that turned me on to it, was the fact that these people talked about being recovered. You know, and they talked about helping other people, and it wasn't just about white knuckling and about one day at a time. And, you know, and about like, you know, I'm just going to get through this moment. They actually seemed happy, you know, and like they had a purpose, and they were thrilled to be there, which I was like, you know, an outpatient, I was like, I'm not thrilled to be here, but they look happy enough, you know. And they made promises, you know, maybe one day I would be speaking, and I was like, whatever, you know, because at that point, all I wanted back was my kid. You know, if only you guys would just understand, if I can just get my kid back, everything would be okay. Just give me my kid back, you know, that was it. You know, so I stumble into Pathway to Power, and I get in there, and it's a big book meeting, and the lights are dimmed, and there's 2 speakers up there, and they're talking about God, and I'm like, oh, no. You know, because I don't have God in my life yet. I don't even have a higher power. You know, I don't have anything in my life, and I don't want to hear anything about God either. But at this point, you know, this is the only place I can be where there was a sense of peace in the room. And people weren't talking about the calamities going on in their lives, and they weren't talking about, like, you know, their cat getting sick on the carpet, and they weren't talking about the car breaking down. And they were just simply talking about whatever step they were on, and half of it I couldn't even understand. I mean, you know, when I came in, I used to have people, you know, read to me, even like the daily reflections, because my mind was so scatterbrained I couldn't even read. You know, it was just that bad. I couldn't hold a book. I had the shakes. My eyes were cross-eyed. I mean, it was just that bad. I mean, some of us come in like that, you know, and I'm grateful, you know, that I got that way, because I can come up here and tell you that. It gets that bad, you know. And so, you know, so I listened to them, and I was like, wow, like there's something here that they have, that I don't. And I had a copy of the big book. Somebody gave me a used copy of the big book that I had, and I was like, well, unless you're going to give me the page number that the solution is on, I don't want anything to do with this. There's no reason that what's going on has anything to do with me in this book. This is stupid. This is for old men. I don't want it. Under the bed, with the dust bunnies, gone. You know, and so I dusted it out, and I brought it with me, you know. And I want to say this too, you know, I'm obviously still like absolutely insane, but when I was going through this dry drunk phase, you know, I was absolutely terrified that there was something so inherently wrong with me, because all these people that apparently weren't real alcoholics like me and were able to stay dry without finding a higher power and going through these steps and working with other people, that there was something inherently wrong with me, that I was broken because I wasn't drinking and I wasn't any happier. I wasn't getting up every day with a feeling of usefulness and like a purpose or anything else. I was getting up and just wanting to die and just going to meetings just because I had to so I could try to get to see my son, and that was it. And it was horrible. It was just absolutely horrible until I met this group of people, that had hit bottom like me, that had this spiritual experience, that were armed with the facts, that had gone through the book and said to me, you are absolutely normal. This is where you belong. This is what it is. This is what you're supposed to, this right here is a program of AA, this big book, is what you were supposed to have been doing this entire time, I'm reading this book right now, The Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox, right? And, in the beginning, and I'm not going to thump too hard here with this, but he talks about how, certain teachings and stuff, get morphed, because we humans, our ego take over and we like to add different facts and different figures and morph things, And so, I might say, something might say, the shirt's blue, and I'll say it's turquoise, and all of a sudden it's teal blue, and they say, it's sea green. By the time it gets over there, it's magenta. So we have a tendency to add all these layers to all this different stuff, so the message gets all disturbed, and that's what we have in these rooms right now, is that, we have this book, this basic text that goes through the steps that teach us what we have to do to have a spiritual experience, to get closer to God, to become recovered. Instead, there's just a ton of meetings going on out there with people talking about themselves and their problems and not actually talking about God and about helping each other and doing anything else. And I was drowning in this. I wanted to die in this. I was almost 9 months sober, and I just wanted to crawl up in a ball, and I couldn't understand what was wrong with me. And if you're anything like that, you are in the right place, and please find somebody that's gone through the book and do this work. So like I said, I sponsor hopped a couple times. I had one woman that, at this point I had just started making my amends list and everything, and I had said to this woman, I was like, my home group, she wasn't from my home group, but I said, my home group was really, really big on sponsorship, and and they say, if I want to keep growing spiritually, if I want to stay sober, if I want to be happy and useful and purposeful, I have to work with others. Can I please start doing this, And she looked at me and she said, Rebecca, look at what you have going on in your life. She's like, you're looking for a job, you don't have a car, you have a crazy ex-husband, you only get phone calls with your kid, what do you have to offer? And I mean, you want to talk about suicidal at this point, and I kind of took a step back and I was like, what? And I get the chills, just thinking about it, And she was like, until you have at least 2 years sober, you're not going to be emotionally mature enough to do anything. And, thinking about that, November 23rd, 2 months from now will be 2 years from me, God willing. If I had waited that long, I would either be drinking or dead right now. And there's not a doubt in my mind whatsoever to that, And I'd say God bless her and leave her, and bounce around. And then, I had somebody else that, my sponsor now, who was taking people through the book and who was armed with the facts. And, and he was like, you want to go through this? And I was like, absolutely, yes, I do. And thank God he did. And it's totally non-traditional, but thank God there was a man that stood up to take me through the book, because at the time there weren't any women that were taking people through the book. You know what I mean? And quite frankly, how do you think we got started? It started with Bill W. and everything and a group of guys. How do you think the women first got sober? I like to ask people that when they question me. Thank you, Gabby. But he explained to me what alcoholism was, and that was a huge part for me, because I thought my alcoholism was, what was the fact, that I was having trouble at my job, that my marriage failed, that all these things happened in my life, that my parents weren't talking to me, the fact that I was broke, the fact that I couldn't return library books on time, whatever it was, all these things are because of me drinking, and I didn't realize that it was that's what people do. People act like jerks. People mess up their lives. Anybody can do that. But that's not what alcoholism is. And he explained to me, that there's a physical, allergy that I have to alcohol. Like if I'm thirsty and I take a sip of this water right here, I'm not much of a water drinker. I'm going to take a sip, wet my mouth, and I'm going to be done with it. I have a sip of vodka and I'm off to the races. And maybe 3, 4, I'm wetting my mouth. Maybe 5, 6, I'm starting to get that little bit of fuzz in my head. But I'm just on. It's great. I just want more. There's no, it's a thirst that's inside my head and an itch I can't scratch that I just have to keep going with, And knowing that, other people, they have an allergy. I wait tables now. If somebody has an allergy to strawberries, they come in and they say, hi, I have an allergy to strawberries and I can't have it. And I go, great, we won't give that to you. I have an allergy to alcohol, and I'm like, wait, give me more, you know? On top of that, I have a mental obsession, you know, which for me looked like, you know, I'm not going to drink until 5 o'clock every day because now I'm a responsible, you know, stay-at-home mom. You know, so literally, you know, by like 4:45, I would have like, you know, my shaking hands, like pouring a drink, and I can remember the sense of ease and relief just looking at that glass would give me, because that was my higher power. You know, it's amazing, like, you know, when I got into step 2 and we started talking about, like, you know, a higher power and this and that, how it was so easy for me to look at a glass and I could have such a sense of relief looking at this poison that I was putting in my system. But yet the idea of anything outside of me, anything outside of that being in control and being all powerful just absolutely blew my mind and seemed so incomprehensible, you know. And then he went on to tell me, you know, that on top of that, that I have a spiritual malady. You know, this void inside of me that I'm constantly trying to fill. You know, it's you know, this restless, irritable, and discontent. You know, a God-shaped hole, a God-sized hole. You know, and I'm just constantly trying to fill it with something to ease my discomfort, because that's my natural state, is uncomfortable. You know, so we went into that, and I had already figured out step 1 on my own, like I said. And, you know, step 2, you know, I wasn't ready to come to this. I had all these preconceived notions about God and about church and about religion and about, like, you know, what it was I was supposed to believe in. And, you know, it talks about the spiritual experience in the back of the book, you know, about contempt prior to investigation, and about, you know, in order to go through this, you know, we have to be able to let go all of our old ideas in order to change our personality sufficiently to get to the point to where we are, to be open, you know, to be able to receive the sunlight of the Spirit, you know. And then, like I said, the first time I went through the book, you know, I spent a month on step 2, and this poor woman had me writing out the conception of God. Tell me what God is. Oh my goodness, the book says in there, we have no idea what God is. We have no idea what he isn't anything. We just know that he's everything, right? And so to even try to describe that at any point in my sobriety is just absolutely pointless. And I don't even want to know. I just know that he's there and that he works for me as long as I take care of his children. That's it. That's all I need to know, you know? I want to overcomplicate everything, you know? And so we get to this, and the book says, you know, God either is or he isn't. You know, and I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what we're going to do. And he, you know, and they said, you know, just, you have to believe in just something outside of yourself. And until I was able to believe in God, I used my son as my higher power, because that was the only tangible thing that I had. It was the only thing that I was staying sober for. It was the only thing that I believed in. It was the only thing I knew that was greater than myself, because he was the embodiment of love. You know, and that's all, that was the only idea that I could come up with, was that God was love, and if God is love, then that's my kid, and that's what I have to work and strive for. You know, I got Danielle sitting down here in the front, and I remember, you know, when I first started going through the steps again, and we started talking about God and everything, we were at her home group, Falcha, and they were doing their, I think it was 16th year anniversary or something, and, you know, I'm selfish now, but I was even more selfish then, if that's imaginable, and somehow, and, you know, and I remember being in the van with her, and she was talking to me, and she was like, you know, well, if it's not God, what is it? And she was like, well, what's going to solve your problem? And I was like, well, me. And I remember being so crazed. I was like, you don't understand. If I don't worry about this, who's going to? Who's going to fix all these things if I'm not? I have to do it right now. And she's like, Rebecca, you're sitting in a van and it's like 10 o'clock at night and we're delivering cookies to the homeless. You're not doing anything. And I was like, yes, I am. And I was just so absolutely out of my mind, you know. And she's like, listen, Rebecca, relax. You know, you stop thinking about yourself. She was like, I'm going to show you what AA is really about. You know, and she collected all the food, you know, from that meeting, and was going around and was giving it to the homeless people, you know, in the area. And she was like, this is what AA is. She was like, you know, and she pointed out, you know, in the book it says we have to be the Good Samaritan every day. You know, regardless of our actions, you know, and everything else of helping alcoholics. You know, we have to be the Good Samaritan every day in what we do and how we live our lives. And, you know, and that felt great. It felt great to do that. And then, you know, I had some guy that wanted my cookies, and I was like, and I did not want, I'm not going to lie, I mean, I still laugh. I mean, I had no money at the time, so I mean, don't get me wrong, I had no groceries or anything, and I had like this monster pack of cookies that I, like, all the homeless get that, but this is like mine, you know, and I was like, I don't want to give this homeless man, these are my cookies, like, I packed these myself, you know, and I love my sugar, and, you know, and of course, I gave them away and everything, and I was bitter for a hot minute, and, you know, and then the moment that the guy said thank you, I was like, oh my goodness, I am so selfish. You know, there's so many ways that we can help each other and do different things, you know, and I don't even realize like how many there are. Like I'm blessed today to have like such an amazing group of people in my life. Like the book talks about how we'll create the fellowship that we want around us, and I didn't even know that I wanted a fellowship like this, but it's absolutely amazing. You know, it's not even like, you know, that I realize like how selfish I am, but it's like I found such an amazing group of people that I see how they treat other people and how they help other people and how they live their lives, and it shows me what else I can do, how else I can be useful to my friends, to my family, to everything else, you know? And a lot of it, honestly, is me just getting out of my own way. I mean, that's how simple it is. I mean, it's just for me to stop thinking about myself and try to meddle and do everything, you know? So, you know, the book talks about, you know, step 3, self-will and riot, which is exactly what I am when I'm not in a spiritual place. You know, I want to manipulate. I know what's best for me. I know what's best for you. I know what's best what's going on at my job that's run itself for the past 30 years without me, but I still know better. You know, I know better about absolutely everything. You know, and even like, you know, when I see people like running amok in their own tornadoes and going crazy, you know, I still think I want to correct them. Like, it's amazing, like how much I want to stick my hands in and meddle in things aren't my business. You know, anyway, you know, I love step 3. You know, this is the step that, you know, it didn't really make sense to me until later on, like exactly what it meant, like, you know, to be employed by God. You know, because it's not just like, oh, okay, like, you know, now God is my boss, and now today I'm not going to drink because he says so. This means, like, you know, that I'm now, you know, an agent of God. Like, for today, like, I'm getting up, and, like, I don't have to be Rebecca, this wretched, horrible, selfish, self-seeking, frightened girl anymore. You know what I mean? I don't have to be the ex-wife of, you know, of an abusive jerk that's afraid of him. I can walk with dignity and grace today, right? I have a purpose. I'm one of God's children. I keep my head up high, you know? And so within this, you know, it says we are, you know, he's the principal. You're his agency as a father. We are his children. As a child of God, I can walk around and know that I'm doing his work. You know, I have to try to align myself with God's will. I have a new employer. You know, and in the prayer it says, relieve me of the bondage of self. Now, I mean, I didn't know exactly what relieve me of the bondage of self was until the day that I became blocked after realizing I was unblocked, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like, I know what the weight of self is. I carried the weight of self for a long time. You know, all of the, you know, the resentments and the fears and the guilt and just everything that I had going on from my past and bad decisions and the people that I'd hurt and all that kind of stuff, you know. And you start going through amends and all that kind of stuff and feeling, you know, better. And then something happens and, you know, either you take your will back or you acted out wrong, whatever, and all of a sudden you're blocked again and you're back in the bondage of self, and oh my God, if that's not the heaviest weight that I've ever experienced in my life, you know, because we go through this work and we get a consciousness again. You know, we get connected to the sunlight of the spirit. We feel light. I feel light. I feel good. I feel good helping other people. I feel good doing the right thing, you know. Now I block myself, and it's just horrible again. You know, so step 3, it says, relieve me of the bondage of myself so that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those thou would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. You know, and we get on our knees and we do that with our sponsor, with our sponsees, you know, and then immediately, and this is where a lot of people stumble, you know, the book says we launch into a course of vigorous action. Right? And again, my first time around, I did step 3, and she was like, all right, see you in a month. You know, left powerless again, you know. So I went through and I redid my step 4, you know, and I did searching and fearless moral inventory, and you know, I think that my fears were probably like twice the length of my resentments. Like, I was scared of everything. I was scared of you. I was scared of me. I was scared of things happening. I was scared of things not happening. I was afraid of literally everything you could possibly think of. I was afraid of getting my son and failing as a mother. I was afraid of not getting my son and failing as a mother. I mean, it was really like every single variance of any situation I had gone through in my head and plotted, and I was just afraid of it, you know. My resentments were, you know, absolutely out of control, you know, because although I wasn't blaming people, you know, for my alcoholism or anything like that, you know, like I was like angry and I mean, it took my kid from me. You know, when I made out my list, I was like, there's never going to be a moment that I'm going to make amends to my ex-husband, ever, ever. I can't see. How much time do I have? How many? 15? 15. Oh, all right. I'm feeling okay up here now. This isn't too bad. Now that I got Gabby here with me, everything's good. So I start making my list, and number one is my ex-husband. And like I said, I never thought that I was going to get to a point, where I was going to be able to make any sort of amends. And amends were huge for me. It was the amends that brought me the power, and it was the amends that changed my life and really made me like, a card-carrying member of AA. Obviously working with others was like where like, oh my goodness, like the real miracles began, and I really felt the power. But it was the amends where I actually started seeing God in my life. Like, it was explained to me, that, there was coincidence. I like to say God winks. Do you know what I mean? It was all just these random occurrences that may not mean anything to anybody else, but I could see them in my life, and these days I even pray, like, once we're elevated onto this, like, spiritual plane, all these happen and they're possible, and it's like, these things might have been happening all the time, and I never would have even known about it, except for the fact that now that I'm here and I can see it, So I went to, I had amends to make with my family. I didn't realize I had to make amends to my parents. I thought that because they lived out of state that, my alcoholism didn't hurt them. I thought because I'd been on my own since I was, 17 and had gone into the group home and put myself through college and supported myself, that everything, that they were unaffected by my alcoholism. And I called up my mom one day who lives in Texas, and, and I did amends by phone at that moment simply because I had no money to get down there to her. And, and I said, Mom, like, this is, like, really it. Like, this is, I know how many times I've told you that I'm going to stop drinking. I know how many times I've told you I'm going to quit. I know how many times, because I used to play higher power with my mom. I made my mom my higher power. And so if my life fell apart, I would call her up the next day and cry and be like, Mom, oh my God, my life is falling apart. And she'd be like, Rebecca, just stop drinking and everything will be okay. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I feel better, and hang up and drink, And, so I've been doing this to her for years. And so, she said to me, I need to get back to you. And I was like, oh my God. She was like, if I tell you exactly what I have to say right now, it's going to put us both in a really bad place. And she was like, I need to take a step back and pray on this right now. And I was like, all right, fair enough. And when she came back to me, she said, there's so many things that I want to rehash to you. She was like, but I really just don't think it's going to get either of us anywhere. And she said, the one thing I just want you to know is just the fact that I haven't slept right. She was like, for the past 20 years. She was like, if the phone rings, I think that you're dead. If the phone doesn't ring, I think that you're dead. She goes, every waking moment, I'm worried about what you're doing and what you're not doing. She was like, and it's just been years of this. She was like, and I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to sleep well again. And she was like, this isn't to tell you, to make you feel bad. This is just to tell you because you're a mother now. And I don't want your son to experience that growing up. And I was like, this was more painful than anything that she probably could have said, to know that I had like hurt my mom like that deep, and that this is something to carry with her. So so God works in miraculous ways, and my family lives in Galveston, and my cousin owns a bar down there, and as a recovered alcoholic, the book talks about how we can go anywhere that we need to and do anything that we want to. I can work around alcohol. I can go to the most sordid places as long as I'm spiritually fit. So I got a call, to do a bartending job at Mardi Gras down in Galveston. And it happened to be the week that I was let out of work from my other job up here. And so I booked a flight, and I called my mother, and I said, I'm going to be in Texas. I'd like to make direct amends to you. And my mom was like, all right. She was like, I don't know if your father's going to want to see you, but I would definitely like to take a moment to see you. We'll have dinner. We'll do whatever. And I was like, this is so amazing, And so I went down there, and I bartended for like 3 days straight, and that pays for my plane ticket. Like, imagine that, bartending paying for a plane ticket to go make amends, But that's just how God works, And I make meetings down there. Let me tell you, I went to a couple meetings down there, and I called my sponsor. I'm like, Tony, guess what? There's no big book meetings down here. No big book meetings down here. And I was like, I cannot wait. So I come armed with the facts, and I'm ready to show these people something. Well, they're not listed as big book meetings because every meeting is a big book meeting. So I get down, they're all ready to show my stuff, and I mean, it's like people have 2-3 weeks sober, and they're already making amends, and they're on their way, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, there's so much miracle and so much hope and so much power in those rooms down there, So I call up my mom, and I tell her, I'm here, Mom. I'm in Texas. I'd like to see you. And, you know, she lives on Galveston Island, and she's like, I don't want you to come into the house. And I'm like, all right, that's kind of odd, but okay. So she has me go and she meet her at her job, and, you know, and she's kind of like aloof, and like, you know, and I speak to her briefly, you know, we hug and we kiss, and, you know, and I knew that there was something off, and I couldn't figure out what. You know, we gave each other a hug and a kiss, and I said I would call her the next day, and I didn't. She didn't pick up. And I spent the next week in Texas, and she didn't pick up her phone again. And, you know, part of being sober and of living in dignity and grace is having respect for other people's wishes. You know, and part of, you know, living step 3 and following through and turning my will over, you know, is the fact that I can't do what I want to do. You know, and so I had to respect my mom's wishes. You know, I wanted to go bang down the door and be like, Mommy, I'm here, like, hug me, hold me. You know, but that wasn't what she wanted at the time, you know. And it was horrible. It was painful. It was intense. You know, I couldn't figure out, like, you know, why my mom didn't want me there. Like, you know, Mom, like, I got a year sober now. Like, whoa, you know, this is amazing. And, you know, and I went home, and I remember calling up my sponsor and just, you know, absolutely just falling apart. And, you know, and it was good because I got down there and I was able to make amends to family members that I didn't even know that I had affected, you know, throughout my life, because it's amazing. You know, it's like I think that I've like isolated myself into this little corner with my drinking, and I've only hurt with the certain people around me. But it's like throwing like a boulder in a lake, and it just keeps rippling out and just like growing and hitting people. You know, like, you know, and the same thing works today with you know, doing positive good deeds. You know, the more good stuff I put out there, the more that it ripples out. We never know exactly what we're doing, who it's going to affect, or how we're going to help each other. You know, but so I turned to my sponsor and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, you know, I had the storyline written in my head. You know, we're going to have this happy ending now. You know, I'm sober, Mom's going to be happy, Dad will fall apart, this is going to be great. You know, and this is not how it was supposed to be. And, you know, and again, you know, I questioned God. I'm like, why did this happen? Why is it happening this way? And, you know, and he said to me, you know, part of this program too is about, is not just being forgiven, it's about forgiving other people. And who are you holding, you know, anger and resentments against that you should be forgiving at this point? And, you know, I have a biological father that gave up custody of me, a church man, a preacher, up in Chicago. And he gave up custody of me, and I had reached out multiple times, and I just didn't want anything to do with him. And I was able to reach out to him and tell him, you know, although I'm not ready to have a relationship with you, you know, I do forgive you for giving up custody of me, you know, and I want you to be able to be happy, you know, and just be free of it. And he was like, oh my God, this is amazing. God works miracles. I'm booking a flight now to come see you. And I said, no, no. You know, but, you know, but because of that, you know, I was able to reconnect with a sister of mine, you know, that I had to make amends to also. You know, the last time that she had seen me, she was only like 7 years old, and she had given me like her favorite like purple and red crayons. And I had promised her that we were going to get together. You know, and my dad had pissed me off, and I'd cut him out. And cutting him out, I'd cut her out. You know, so I reconnect with this woman that's 31 years old. And, you know, what a blessing that I can come to her and I can say, you know, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that I hurt you. You were 7 years old. You know, and you know, you don't, it has everything to do with alcoholism and nothing to do with alcoholism at the same time. Like, it wasn't that drink, you know, that made me be who I was, but it was all that self-centered thinking of all of my actions and not how they roll out onto everybody else and who it affects, you know, because at that time I was just pissed off at my dad and I wanted nothing to do with him. And I was like, well, if I'm cutting him off, everybody has to be done. And here I am hurting a little girl that I didn't even know. You know, but because I was able to forgive him, I now have a relationship. I have a sister. My son has an aunt. I mean, like, I flew to Texas to get my mom, and I got a sister. I mean, you know, you don't know how God is going to work in your life. And I cry a lot anyway, so don't mind me. You know, and I went ahead and I made a lot of amends, you know, and I made amends to my ex-husband. And, you know, I'll only, you know, grace over this very quickly, you know, but I had a very, very hard time coming to grips with the fact that I would owe somebody that was physically abusive amends, you know. And what it came down to was that, you know, I had financially hurt him many times over. And when I sought to make retribution with him, he didn't like the terms that I have. And the book also says that we don't get on our knees for anybody. You know, I said, I know that I owe you money from certain things, you know, when we were married, and I can give you $50 a month right now, you know, in good faith to make things right. And when I have a better income, I'll be more than willing to pay you off. And he was like, F you, I'll take you to court. And I said, okay, you know, but you know, I didn't do it. You know, I mean, God always takes care of us, you know what I mean? And the thing too is about becoming unblocked, and it's about willingness. It's always about willingness, and that's what it comes down to for me. You know what I mean? Is that if I'm willing to do these things, if I'm willing to do whatever it takes, you know, to get closer to God. I gotta find this part because I love it. Hold on a second. You know, but it says, you know, we have to be willing to do anything. Like, you know, we can't fear. You know, we have to fit ourselves with maximum service. Okay, right here. We will never get over our drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out our past. That means that no matter what you've done to me, I still have to fix my side of the road. It doesn't matter, right? And where was I wrong in this? And this was a huge thing for me. Where I was wrong with this was the fact that I chose to stay with somebody that treated me this poorly. You know, and that was a heavy, heavy rock to hold, a heavy rock to hold. You know, because it's much, much easier to claim to be the victim. You know, but victims don't recover. Victims don't get better. Victims can't help other people. You know, and it's not to say that he was right in anything he did or in any way that it treated me or anything that he did. But not only did I stay there, but I carried that with me even after. And then when I was in the rooms and I stopped drinking, I sat there and I cried because I thought it was okay to be the victim because he had done that to me in the past. You know, and until I was able to let all that go, I couldn't be completely useful and connected to God. You know, being able to go through these steps has been such a blessing because it's brought, like I said, like so many amazing people into my life. You know, I have somebody that I had the pleasure of helping take through the steps now. You know, and I get to see other people that I've worked with, like, go out and do other, like, miraculous work. Like, you know, I'll jokingly, like, text friends, and I'll, like, you know, sponsor and be like, hey, what are you doing? Have you helped anybody today? And he's like, actually, I'm at a church. And I'm like, oh, wait, hold on, are you kidding me? Like, I just saw you 6 months ago, and you were in a detox I was speaking at, right? You know, and he's like, yeah, I'm at a church, you know. Hi, Matt. You know, I'm at a church. And, you know, and I'm finding out how we're going to feed the homeless. And I told him if they have any, like, you know, drunks that you can send my way, you know, but I'm going to help them. And I'm like, and it has nothing to do with me. Has absolutely nothing to do with me. Has absolutely nothing to do with anything that I've done. But I get to be a part of this. You know, like God gave me this, you know, God gave me this opportunity to relive again. Like I pinch myself every single day. You know, I look around and I look at all the miracles that are in here. Like I get to be this sober, functioning woman. I get to be a better mother today. You know, and right now I don't have full custody of my kid back yet. I'm the Wednesday and every other weekend mom. You know, and for now that's just what I have to be. And the big part of this program too is like, you know, if whatever I might think I need to be is okay, and that's fine. We can put that, you know, to the wayside. But who is it that God wants me today? You know, but if I'm an agent of God and I'm working for God and I'm not meant to be a full-time mom today, then who is it that He wants me to be instead? You know, and that's part of my prayers every single morning is what can I do today? Who do you want me to be? Who can I help? Because God knows my first thought is always about me and what I need to do and the bills I need to pay and how I'm going to get to X, Y, and Z and, you know, what toys I have to get for my son and all these worldly calamities that really don't matter, you know. And today I can look at it, and that's been my saving grace because honestly, being apart from my son has been the hardest challenge of my life. You know, because I think the moment I put down alcohol, I should just have my kid back. And, you know, life doesn't work that way. I don't get to make the rules, you know. The only thing I can do is work this program and continue to help other alcoholics. You know, what a blessing that is. Like, I thought that I was like, you know, what, for my first experience 20 years ago going through these meetings, you know, I went for a year. And I didn't even do any steps. You know, I went to the sister program, and it was all war stories. You know, and so that's what I expected coming in this time around. I sincerely thought that it was just going to be going to meetings and just not drinking and drinking too much coffee, which I still drink copious amounts of coffee, you know. But thank God, God put this book in my life, put my sponsor in my life, put everybody else like you in my life to keep me sober and to help each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Rebecka one more time for coming out and sharing with us. We do this every Saturday. We have two more pretty powerful women coming this month. Beth B next week from New Jersey, and then Karina D is coming in from New York City for our final one this month. Beg, borrow, and steal to be here to be good. Again, no smoking, please. Thanks for coming out. We have a Facebook page. Don't forget that. It's too loud. Not loud enough. We have a Facebook page, Contact Speaker Group. You can follow all the stuff that we have on there. It's pretty cool. Keeps you hooked up and down the East Coast. Everybody's posting there, all the workshops, all the meetings. It's pretty good to be there. And we got a nice way of closing. If you care to join us, thank you for coming out. We hit Perkins afterwards usually.